What secret did the sunken Bronze Age temple hide beneath the black silted waters of the Aegean? The question haunts archaeologists, divers, and storytellers alike, for it is a mystery that lies at the crossroads of myth and stone, where the sea has swallowed a place that once pulsed with human devotion. In the late 1970s, a modest fishing trawler dragged its net across an uncharted shoal off the coast of Crete. Among the tangled rope and discarded fish, the crew felt the sudden resistance of something far heavier than any fish, a massive, corroded slab of stone, slick with algae and covered in a pattern that resembled a faded fresco. When the net was hauled aboard, the slab revealed the faint outline of a doorway, its lintel bearing a series of strange, repeating symbols that no scholar could immediately read. Soon after, a team of marine archaeologists led by Dr. Elena Marcu returned with sonar equipment and a submersible. Their scans showed a sprawling complex, its walls still intact, arranged in a perfect rectangle that matched the dimensions of known Minoan palaces, yet the construction techniques were unlike any known Bronze Age method. Massive basalt columns rose from the seabed, their bases carved with spirals that echo the sacred labyrinths of ancient Crete, but the capitals bore an unfamiliar motif. A double-headed beast, half lion, half serpent, eyes gouged out by time. Inside the temple, the divers discovered a sealed chamber, its entrance blocked by a massive stone block that had slid into place centuries ago, as if the sea itself had pressed it shut. When the block was moved, a rush of cold, briny water escaped, carrying with it a faint, metallic scent, an odor that some survivors of the dive described as reminiscent of burnt copper and ancient incense. In the center of the chamber lay a pedestal, its surface etched with a map of stars that does not correspond to any known Bronze Age sky. The constellations are shifted, as if the builders were tracking a celestial event that modern astronomers have yet to identify. Among the artifacts was a small, polished stone tablet, only a few centimeters thick, inscribed with a script that resembles Linear B, but includes additional characters never seen before. One theory suggests it could be a priest code, a ritual ledger describing a ceremony meant to bind the sun's power to the earth, perhaps an early attempt at what later cultures would call solar worship. Another, more speculative, hypothesis proposes that the tablet records a calendar of the deep, a schedule for tidal rites that only the temple's priesthood could perform, aligning human activity with the moon's hidden phases. The most chilling element, however, is the presence of a massive, perfectly round stone sphere, about 2 meters in diameter, found half buried in the sand near the altar. Its surface is polished to a mirror-like sheen, and when a diver shone a torch upon it, the reflected light seemed to ripple, as if the sphere were alive. Some researchers argue it could be a sounding stone, used to emit low-frequency vibrations that resonated with the surrounding water, perhaps to calm storms or to communicate with something beyond our comprehension. No written record from the Bronze Age mentions such a structure, and no later civilization seems to have built anything comparable. The temple's abrupt submergence coincides with a massive tsunami that struck the eastern Mediterranean around 1500 BCE, an event recorded in distant Egyptian hieroglyphs as a great flood of the gods. Whether the temple was deliberately sacrificed to the sea or simply caught in nature's wrath remains unknown. What lies at the heart of that forgotten sanctuary? Is it a repository of ancient knowledge, a gateway to a lost ritual, or merely the echo of a civilization that dared to reach for the heavens and was swallowed by the depths? The water keeps its secrets tight, and as each wave laps over the stone arches, the question lingers, waiting for a brave mind to pull the final veil from the abyss. What could cause a perfect ring of ancient stones to crumble in the frozen night, leaving nothing but jagged shards and an echo of a civilization that may never have existed? The stone circle of Svalbard, perched on a remote outcrop of the Svalbard archipelago, has haunted explorers since its first documented sighting in 1923. Unlike the weather-worn monoliths of Stonehenge, these blocks were cut from a single, dark basaltic vein, each slab fitting the next with a precision that suggests a sophisticated understanding of geometry. Their arrangement forms a perfect 30-meter diameter circle, its axis aligned almost exactly with the winter solstice sunrise, a detail that has sparked endless debate among archaeoastronomers. For decades, the circle stood undisturbed, its surface blanketed by a thin veneer of snow and ice that seemed to protect it from the relentless Arctic gale. Then, in the spring of 1979, a Norwegian research team returned to find the circle shattered. 12 of the 24 stones had collapsed inward, some split cleanly down the middle, others toppled into the icy meltwater below. The remaining stones lay askew, their once perfect alignment broken beyond repair. Investigators scoured the site for clues. No seismic records indicated an earthquake of sufficient magnitude. The permafrost, while slowly thawing due to a mild summer, showed no signs of sudden subsidence. Geologists detected a thin layer of unusually high concentrations of sulfur and iron sulfide, minerals that form when ancient organic matter decays in anaerobic conditions. Some hypothesize that a hidden cavern beneath the circle, filled with trapped methane, may have ignited spontaneously, sending a shockwave that shattered the monoliths. Yet no scorch marks or ash were found, and the surrounding ice remained pristine. Another line of inquiry points to human interference. In the late 1970s, illegal poachers frequented the islands, hunting polar bears for their pelts. Local folklore tells of a stone guardian that would punish those who disturbed sacred ground. A single set of fresh footprints, matching the tread of a heavy sled, was discovered near the western edge of the circle, too recent to belong to the original expedition, too vague to confirm intent. The mystery deepens when considering the inscriptions etched into the stones. Weathered symbols, resembling a blend of runic and unknown glyphs, were partially exposed after the collapse. Scholars have identified a repeating motif that could represent a calendar or a warning, but the fragmentary nature of the carvings prevents any definitive translation. Some propose the circle functioned as a ceremonial anchor for a lost Arctic cult, perhaps linked to the enigmatic Sakak culture that once thrived far to the south. If so, the collapse could symbolize a ritual ending, a deliberate act meant to seal the site from the eyes of future travelers. Whatever the cause, natural thaw, subterranean gas, or a secretive human hand, the shattered circle remains a stark reminder that even the most enduring monuments can be reduced to ruin in an instant. The cold wind that sweeps across Svalbard now carries with it whispers of a puzzle that may never be solved, leaving us to wonder whether the stones fell because they were meant to, or because something far more sinister reached up from the darkness beneath the ice. It was a bitter winter in the heart of Siberia, the kind of cold that turns breath into crystal and makes the very ground seem to sigh under a weight of ice. In the early months of 1912, a small team of Russian surveyors, armed with theodolites and a fierce determination to chart the last unmapped stretches of the Great Siberian Plateau, set out to document a river that locals called the Zimnyaya Vila. On their maps, the river ran like a silver ribbon, frozen solid for most of the year, its banks flanked by towering larch forests and the occasional shaman stone circle. The men recorded its length, its tributaries, the precise coordinates of the ice cliffs that marked its source. Their journals spoke of how the river froze to a depth of 2 meters, allowing sleds to glide over its surface as if it were a natural highway. But when the spring thaw arrived, the river did not melt as expected. Instead, the ice gave way to a yawning void. The water that should have surged downstream simply vanished. The surveyors returned in the summer of 1912, expecting a swollen, muddy channel, yet all they found was a desolate valley, its bed dry, littered with broken driftwood and the faint imprint of a once powerful flow. Satellite images taken decades later still show an empty scar where the river once coursed, a dark line on the earth that never fills. Local legends whisper that the river was a spirit path, a frozen artery of the land, and that the earth reclaimed it when the people stopped honoring the old rites. One theory, proposed by geologist Nikolai Petrov, suggests a massive subterranean fissure opened beneath the riverbed, diverting the water into an underground karst system that remains hidden beneath permafrost. Another, more unsettling hypothesis points to a sudden, localized geothermal event, an explosion of steam that melted the ice from below, carving a new, invisible channel deep underground. Yet no seismic records from that year indicate any tremor strong enough to create such a breach. The mystery deepened when, in 1925, an expedition led by explorer Vladimir Kirov stumbled upon a series of massive, perfectly rounded stones arranged in a perfect circle at the former river mouth. The stones bore strange, weathered markings, symbols not matching any known Siberian script, resembling a blend of ancient runes and unknown pictographs. Some scholars argue they are the remnants of a forgotten ritual meant to bind the water to the land, a desperate attempt to seal a breach that had already opened. To this day, the dry trench remains a haunting reminder that nature can erase a river from the map as easily as ink fades from parchment. Researchers who have drilled into the bed report finding water at depths of 30 meters, moving sluggishly through a labyrinth of frozen tunnels, as if the river still exists, hidden from sight, flowing beneath an eternal sheet of ice. The question lingers in the wind that whistles through the barren valley. Did the earth simply swallow the river, or did something far older and far more deliberate pull it away, leaving only silence and a cold that refuses to thaw? The night sky over the Namib stretches like a black ocean, its endless horizon broken only by the faint, metallic glint of a place that locals call the Glass Dome. For centuries, the towering sandstone monoliths have been a sanctuary for wind-carved secrets. But in the summer of 2014, a team of geologists stumbled upon something that would turn the silent desert into a whispering archive of an unknown hand. Buried beneath a thin veil of translucent silica, formed over millennia when sand fused under the relentless heat, lay a series of shallow depressions, each etched with a pattern so precise it could not have been the work of random erosion. The glyphs are arranged in rows, their lines intersecting at right angles, spiraling into a central motif that resembles an eye staring back at the observer. When the first light of dawn struck the glass, the symbols caught the sun's rays and shimmered with an eerie, almost phosphorescent glow, as if the stone itself were trying to speak. Scientists have cataloged over 200 individual markings, yet none correspond to known scripts from the Khoisan, San, or any African language families. Some researchers argue that the shapes bear a vague resemblance to the ancient Sumerian pictograms, while others see a connection to the enigmatic petroglyphs of the Atacama, suggesting a shared, lost tradition of desert peoples. One theory proposes that the dome once served as a ceremonial observatory, the glyphs acting as a celestial calendar, aligning with solstices and lunar eclipses. However, precise astronomical calculations have yet to reveal a consistent pattern, leaving the purpose as elusive as the wind that constantly reshapes the glass. Adding to the mystery, a handful of the symbols contain a repeating sequence of 3 dots followed by a single elongated line, a pattern that, when plotted, forms a perfect golden ratio spiral. Some cryptographers have speculated that this could be a rudimentary code, perhaps a map or a warning, but without a key the message remains locked behind stone. The desert, indifferent to human curiosity, continues to shift the dome's glass, occasionally revealing new fragments of the puzzle, then covering them again with its relentless sands. The very existence of these glyphs forces us to confront a haunting possibility. A civilization once thrived here, sophisticated enough to carve lasting symbols into a medium that would survive ages, yet vanished without a trace, leaving only these silent, shining hieroglyphs as a testament. As the wind sighs through the dome's hollow chambers, one cannot help but wonder what other stories are hidden beneath the desert's glass. Stories that may never be spoken, only felt in the shiver that runs down an explorer's spine when the sun catches the symbols just right. Why does an ancient bronze mirror, tarnished by centuries of dust, seem to whisper a language no one can read? The question has haunted scholars since the mirror emerged from the burial mound near the ruined city of Uruk, a site once thought to belong solely to the Sumerian civilization. The object itself is unremarkable at first glance. A shallow, circular disc of hammered bronze, its surface polished to a faint shine that catches the light like a dying star. Yet when the first archaeologists, Hannah Al-Masri and her team, held it up to the waning afternoon sun, the reflection did not merely show their faces. In the silvery sheen, faint looping symbols appeared, hovering just above the surface, as if etched by an invisible hand. The marks resembled no known cuneiform, nor any later alphabet. They pulsed, faintly glowing, and seemed to shift when the observer moved, as if the mirror were a portal to another mode of perception. The discovery sent ripples through the academic world. Some propose that the mirror was a ritual object, used by priest-kings to commune with deities whose names were forbidden to speak. In that theory, the reflected script is a divine glyph, a visual prayer that only the initiated could decode. Others argue that the phenomenon is a natural optical effect. The bronze alloy contains trace amounts of copper and tin that, under certain angles of sunlight, produce a diffraction pattern resembling writing. Yet laboratory tests have reproduced the mirror's surface under controlled lighting, and the mysterious script still materializes, defying simple physics. A more unsettling hypothesis points to the possibility of a lost language. Linguist Dr. Ilya Vasiliev notes that the curves bear a faint resemblance to the enigmatic symbols found on the Phaistos disk, suggesting a shared cultural substrate that predates known civilizations. If true, the mirror could be the sole surviving fragment of a forgotten tongue, a silent testament to a people erased from history. However, attempts to match the patterns with any cataloged script have failed, leaving the symbols locked in an impenetrable cipher. The mirror's journey does not end in the museum vault. Local legends claim that at night, when the moon hangs low over the ancient mound, the bronze disk hums softly, and the glyphs glow brighter, casting shadows that dance like restless spirits. Villagers speak of dreams in which the symbols rearrange themselves, forming messages that warn of impending calamities. Whether these stories are mere folklore or echoes of a deeper, perhaps supernatural, memory remains unknown. What remains certain is that the bronze mirror continues to defy explanation. It stands at the crossroads of archaeology, physics, and myth, a silent, polished enigma that reflects not only the faces of those who gaze upon it, but also a language that may never be understood. The question lingers like the chill in a forgotten tomb. Are we looking at a forgotten script, a trick of light, or something far more ancient that still watches us from the depths of time? What could force an entire caravan to vanish without a trace, leaving only a stretch of sand that still bears the imprint of wheels and broken pottery, as if the travelers had simply stepped into a void and never returned? The story of the missing Silk Road convoy of 1242 begins under the scorching heat of the Gobi, where traders from Cathay, Persia, and the Balkans converged on a seasonal well known to the nomads as the Singing Stone. The well, a deep limestone pool that sang when the wind rushed over its rim, was the last known point of contact before the caravan set out for the great market of Samarkand. Historical records from the Yuan court describe a fleet of over 80 heavily laden camels, each burdened with silk bolts, jade figurines, spices, and letters addressed to far-off courts. A lone scout, a Mongol named Badu, reported that the night before departure, a peculiar aurora rippled across the horizon, a trembling greenish light that seemed to dance above the dunes, unseen by any previous travelers. The next morning, the convoy slipped into the desert, but by the time the next caravan arrived, the tracks stopped abruptly near a shallow basin known today as the Mouth of the Forgotten. Archaeologists who later surveyed the basin uncovered a curious pattern: a perfect circle of compacted sand, 15 meters in diameter, with a central depression containing fragments of lacquered wood, a broken jade amulet, and a handful of iron bindings. No bones, no footprints, no remnants of a camp, only the eerie stillness of the sand that had not been disturbed for centuries. Some scholars suggest that a sudden sandstorm could have buried the travelers, yet the wind would have left a chaotic mound, not a flawless circle. One theory, drawn from ancient Mongolian folklore, speaks of the eternal mirage, a phenomenon where a luminous veil appears on the horizon, luring wanderers into an invisible canyon that never leads anywhere. According to the 13th century Persian geographer Yaqut al-Hamawi, such mirages were thought to be the work of spirits protecting buried treasures. More scientific proposal points to a rare seismic event, a shallow fault line beneath the basin that, when triggered, could cause a sudden subsidence, swallowing everything above in a split-second collapse. The fault would have closed almost instantly, leaving the sand to settle into the perfect circle observed today. Yet, the most unsettling clue lies in the weathered parchment found among the fragments, a torn piece of a trade ledger, still bearing a faint inked line. When the stones sing, "We shall turn," the phrase echoes the well's nickname, hinting that the caravan may have been lured by something beyond human comprehension, perhaps an ancient warning forgotten over time. As night falls over the Gobi and the wind once again whistles through the stone's cracks, the desert keeps its secret. The missing caravan remains an enigma, a ghostly procession frozen in the dunes, reminding us that even the greatest arteries of trade can be swallowed whole by forces we have yet to understand. What could turn a quiet, sun-baked plateau into a river of blood, lifting homes and lives into the sky within minutes? This is the question that still haunts the elders of the remote Andean settlement of Quilca, a place that vanished under a crimson storm on the night of 12 October 1972. For generations, Quilca's stone houses clung to the edge of a basaltic basin, surrounded by the stark, ochre-colored dunes of the Altiplano. The villagers lived by the rhythm of the wind, soft gusts that carried the scent of quinoa and the distant echo of llama bells. Then, without warning, the heavens darkened. Witnesses recall a low, guttural rumble that rose from the earth itself, as if the mountains were exhaling a warning. Within seconds, a wall of sand erupted, but it was not the familiar yellow of desert storms. The grains glowed with a deep rust-red hue, as though each particle had been dyed with iron and blood. The storm moved like a living thing, swirling in concentric circles, lifting roofs, snapping wooden beams, and dragging livestock into its vortex. Those who managed to escape speak of a metallic smell, like hot steel, and an oppressive heat that made the air feel as thick as water. The sandstorm lasted only 10 minutes, but in that brief span, it erased an entire village. Walls collapsed, fields were buried, and the only evidence left was a smear of scarlet dust on the surrounding rocks. Scientists who later examined the site found that the sand contained unusually high concentrations of hematite, a mineral that imparts a red color when finely ground. Some geologists argue that a sudden seismic shift could have fractured an ancient iron-rich vein beneath the basin, releasing the mineral-laden dust into the atmosphere. Others suggest a rare atmospheric phenomenon, an electrostatic discharge that charged the particles, causing them to cling together and fall in a dense, cohesive sheet. No one has been able to reproduce the event, and the precise trigger remains a mystery. The people of neighboring towns still speak of the red wave, a cautionary tale whispered at dusk, reminding us that even the most familiar landscape can conceal forces beyond our comprehension. As the wind still howls over the empty basin, one can't help but wonder, what unseen hand lifted that scarlet tide, and why did it choose Quilca as its canvas? The answer, for now, is buried beneath the blood-red dunes, waiting for a future brave enough to uncover it. The night the ancient oak grove vanished, the moon hung low and blood-red over the rolling hills of the Carpathian foothills, casting long, trembling shadows on a landscape that locals had called the sacred oak forest for centuries. For generations, villagers whispered that the trees were guardians, roots that drank from the earth's hidden veins, branches that reached toward the heavens like the fingers of a forgotten deity. Pilgrims trekked for days to stand beneath the canopy, feeling the cool, fragrant air as if it were a living prayer. Then, at dawn, when the first rooster crowed, the entire forest was gone. All that remained was a perfect circle of earth, scorched in places as though a giant hand had brushed a match across the soil. The ground was slick with a thin layer of ash, and a faint, metallic scent lingered, unusual for a woodland that had never known fire. No tree stumps, no roots, nothing but a smooth, unnaturally even expanse that seemed to pulse with a low, humming vibration. Investigators arrived with chainsaws, shovels, even ground-penetrating radar, hoping to uncover a hidden sinkhole or a concealed trench. The instruments detected a shallow cavity, no deeper than a man's height, but the space was empty, no tunnels, no chambers, just a void that defied the laws of geology. Soil samples revealed traces of a rare mineral, called thulium oxide, that does not naturally occur in this region. Some geologists suggested a sudden, massive release of underground gases could have uprooted the trees, but the absence of any scorch marks on nearby rocks contradicted that theory. Local folklore offers a darker explanation. Elder Mara, the last surviving member of the original village council, recalled a night of chanting when a traveling mystic claimed to release the spirit of the forest. According to her, the mystic spoke of a pact. The oaks would protect the valley in exchange for a tribute of blood. When the villagers refused, the spirit supposedly reclaimed its domain in a single, terrifying breath. Scientists remain divided. One hypothesis posits that a clandestine military exercise, involving a low-frequency acoustic weapon, could have caused the tree's rapid demise, though no official records exist. Another, more speculative, theory suggests a temporal anomaly, a tear in the fabric of reality that momentarily swallowed the forest, leaving behind only a ghostly imprint. Whatever the cause, the sacred oak forest never returned. In the years that followed, the circle became a pilgrimage site for those drawn to the unknown. At night, some swear they hear a low, mournful hum rising from the earth, as if the trees themselves are still whispering, waiting for the moment when they might reappear. The unanswered question hangs over the valley like a shroud. What force could erase an entire ancient forest in the span of a single night, and why did it choose this hidden pocket of the world? The mystery remains, a silent, gnarled echo in the wind. Deep within the jagged spine of the Andes, where the air grows thin and the night seems to swallow sound, a labyrinth of limestone tunnels has kept humanity's breath held for centuries. They are known to the locals as the Cavernas de los Susurros, the Whispering Caves, a name earned not only for the eerie, low-frequency hum that resonates off the stone, but also for the strange, indecipherable markings that cling to every surface like a secret language waiting for a key that may never exist. The first recorded encounter dates to 1893, when a group of shepherds seeking shelter from a sudden storm stumbled upon a chamber illuminated only by phosphorescent moss. Their lanterns flickered over walls covered in rows of symbols that resembled a hybrid of ancient Andean glyphs, undeciphered scripts of the Inca, and something altogether alien. The marks were etched so deeply that the stone seemed to weep a fine powder with each touch, as if the cave itself resisted any attempt to read its story. Since then, explorers, archaeologists, and even a few daring linguists have descended into the depths, drawn by the promise of a voice from a forgotten epoch. The whispers that echo through the tunnels have been described as a low, pulsating vibration that rises when someone pauses to study the symbols, then fades into an unsettling silence. Some scientists suggest the phenomenon is caused by a unique airflow pattern interacting with the cavern's resonant chambers, creating a natural infrasonic hum. Others, particularly the descendants of the Quechua people, believe the caves are inhabited by the spirits of ancestors, communicating through the stone. What makes the script even more perplexing is its apparent lack of repetition. Unlike the linear progressions found in known scripts, these signs appear in a chaotic mosaic, some overlapping, some interwoven with mineral veins that glow faintly under ultraviolet light. When photographed, the images reveal a faint luminescence that seems to shift, as though the symbols themselves are alive, rearranging when the eye looks away. One theory, put forth by Dr. Elena Marquez, a specialist in pre-Columbian cultures, posits that the markings could be an early form of a mnemonic device, a visual map of water sources, seasonal routes, and hidden sanctuaries, encoded in a way that only initiated members of a secretive mountain cult could interpret. Yet, attempts to match the patterns with known Quechua iconography have yielded nothing but dead ends. Another, more speculative hypothesis suggests an extraterrestrial influence. The geometric precision of certain symbols, perfect circles intersected by straight lines, mirrors motifs found on the stone slabs of the Nazca Desert, leading a small community of researchers to wonder whether a shared, perhaps interstellar, knowledge thread once spanned the continent. They caution, however, that correlation does not equal causation, and the caves remain stubbornly mute on the matter. What is perhaps most haunting is the accounts of those who claim the whispers become intelligible after prolonged exposure. A seasoned speleologist reported that, after several nights alone in the deepest chamber, the hum coalesced into a rhythm that matched the cadence of an ancient chant, a lament for a lost people whose names have been erased from history. He left the caves whispering the melody in his mind, unable to explain whether the sound was a hallucination born of isolation or a true transmission from the stone. To this day, the Whispering Caves keep their script unreadable, their hum unfathomable, and their purpose concealed beneath layers of earth and myth. As modern technology presses deeper into the Andes, the question lingers in the cold, echoing tunnels. What message lies hidden in those haunting symbols, and are we, as a species, ever destined to understand the silent voices of the mountain's past? The stone walls of the cavern were so perfectly hewn that even the most seasoned geologists whispered that they could not have been the work of ordinary miners. Deep beneath the rolling hills of the Carpathians, a team of speleologists stumbled upon a doorway that seemed to have been waiting for centuries, a massive underground chamber the size of a cathedral, its ceiling arching over 30 meters high, its floor paved with slabs of basalt polished to an almost glassy sheen. The first torchlight flickered across the space, revealing rows of enigmatic symbols etched into the walls, spirals intertwined with unknown glyphs that no known language could decode. But the most unsettling discovery came not from the stone, but from the air itself. As the explorers set up their equipment, a low, resonant hum rose from the darkness, as if the rock itself were breathing. When they spoke, their words were swallowed only to return moments later, distorted, echoing back from unseen corners of the void. Even when the chamber was completely silent, faint voices seemed to drift through the stone, soft syllables that sounded like an ancient chant, a language lost to time. Scientists have measured the acoustics and found that the chamber acts as a perfect resonator, amplifying sounds from far beyond its walls. Some suggest the echoes could be the remnants of a forgotten ritual, the lingering vibrations of prayers spoken millennia ago, trapped in the very fabric of the rock. Others propose a more unsettling theory, that the chamber sits atop a natural fissure, a conduit through which subterranean gases carry vibrations from deep within the earth, turning the stone into a giant organ that sings the planet's hidden hymns. No artifacts were found within the chamber, no bones, no tools, no signs of habitation, just the polished floor, the inscrutable markings, and the ghostly chorus that refuses to fade. The mystery deepens with each recording. The voices never repeat, they shift, as if multiple speakers are speaking in turn, their tones rising and falling like a forgotten choir. The locals, who have tended the nearby villages for generations, speak of the Silent Hall, a place their ancestors warned never to enter, believing it to be a doorway to another world. What caused this immense, empty void to echo with the whispers of the past? Was it a sanctuary for a lost civilization, a cosmic acoustic trap, or something far older? Perhaps a natural phenomenon that has been mythologized into legend? The answers remain hidden within the stone, waiting for the next brave soul to listen to the echoes that refuse to die. What if a monument that should have risen to the sky was swallowed by the earth in the span of a single night's rain? In the arid plateau of the Yucatan, beneath a thin veil of moss-green jungle, archaeologists have uncovered the ghost of a pyramid that never saw the sun. Its base, a perfect square of limestone blocks, is half buried in a layer of dark, compacted soil that, according to local legend, fell like a curtain on a night when the heavens opened and poured a torrent unseen in living memory. The story begins in 1972, when a team from the National Institute of Anthropology trekked through the dense undergrowth searching for a forgotten Mayan settlement mentioned in a crumbling codex. Their machetes sliced through vines to reveal a shallow depression, a perfect rectangle outlined by stones that had never been smoothed or carved. As they cleared the earth, the workers heard the distant rumble of thunder, and a storm rolled in from the east. Within hours, rain hammered the plateau, turning the dry riverbeds into raging streams. When the storm subsided, the ground was a slick, black mud, and the freshly exposed foundation was already sinking, the lower courses disappearing beneath a sudden, inexplicable layer of compacted clay. Further excavation uncovered a series of half-finished terraces, each bearing the faint imprint of a ruler's hand. The glyphs still raw, the mortar still wet. No tools, no scaffolding, no evidence of a labor force beyond a handful of stone cutters. Yet the alignment of the base matches the cardinal points with a precision that rivals the Great Pyramids of Giza. Some scholars propose that a catastrophic flood, perhaps the result of a rare tropical cyclone, inundated the site so violently that the builders, fearing divine wrath, abandoned the work and covered it with earth to appease the angry gods. Others suggest a more sinister motive, a political coup that halted the reign of a king whose tomb was meant to house his power for eternity, and the unfinished stone was deliberately entombed as a warning. The rain-filled layer itself is a mystery. Geologists have dated the mineral composition to a single, massive depositional event, estimating that no more than 12 hours elapsed between the rain's onset and the solidification of the soil. The water, saturated with volcanic ash from a distant eruption, acted like cement, binding the loose sediment into a hard, almost basaltic crust that now protects the pyramid's secret. Inside, tiny pockets of air remain, and when the wind whistles through the overgrown corridors, a faint echo can be heard, as if the stone itself is whispering a lament for a dream never realized. To this day, the unfinished pyramid stands as a silent testament to ambition halted by nature's fury, a monument that was meant to reach the heavens, but was instead buried by a single night's rain. Its stone walls still hold questions that no modern technology can answer. Who ordered its construction? Why was it left so abruptly? And what ancient knowledge might lie concealed within the layers of mud that now guard it? The answers remain locked beneath the earth, waiting for the next storm to decide whether they will ever see the light. What if a lighthouse never existed, yet sailors swore they saw a column of impossible light rising from the ruins of a harbor that has been swallowed by the sea for centuries? The story begins on the desolate coastline of the ancient port of Pylos, a once thriving trading hub on the western edge of the Aegean that vanished after a sudden earthquake in 138 BC. Archaeologists have uncovered only scattered marble foundations, a few broken amphorae, and the ghostly outline of a dock that now lies half submerged beneath turquoise waves. Yet for more than 100 years, fishermen from the nearby village of Agios Nikos have reported a luminous column appearing over the water on moonless nights, flickering like a living beacon before vanishing without a trace. Eyewitnesses describe the phenomenon as a pale, pulsing glow that rises from the seafloor, climbs the ruined stone pier, and then arches toward the sky, casting an eerie, silver-blue wash across the waves. The light does not follow any known pattern of bioluminescent algae, nor does it match the behavior of natural gas flares that occasionally erupt from the seabed. Some locals claim the illumination lasts precisely 12 minutes, always the same length, before the sea swallows it whole, as if an unseen hand were turning a switch. Scientific expeditions have tried to capture the event with infrared cameras and sonar scans. In 1998, a joint team from the University of Crete and the Hellenic Navy recorded a brief surge of electromagnetic activity coinciding with the sighting, but the data was inconclusive. Theories range from trapped pockets of methane igniting under pressure to a rare atmospheric refraction caused by temperature inversions over the shallow bay. One more speculative idea, whispered among the older fishermen, suggests the light is a lingering echo of the ancient lighthouse that once guided Pylos' merchants, a relic of a technology lost to the ages, perhaps a mirror of fire reflected by a hidden crystal lens. The mystery deepens when a 17th-century Ottoman log, discovered in a monastery archive, mentions a fiery column that rose from the dead harbor and sang with the wind. No other contemporary source speaks of such a sight, making the entry both tantalizing and perplexing. As the sea continues to claim the stones of Pylos, the strange light flickers on the edge of memory, reminding us that some secrets are etched not in stone, but in the very darkness that surrounds them. The question remains, is the glow a natural quirk of the deep, a forgotten relic of ancient engineering, or something far stranger that defies our understanding of the world? What if the true enigma isn't a single event, a single artifact, or a single cursed place, but the invisible thread that binds every mystery together? As we close this journey through the world's most baffling riddles, a single, unsettling question hovers above every stone circle, every cryptic inscription, every inexplicable phenomenon we have uncovered. Why does the universe seem to conceal its deepest secrets from us, only to tease us with half-glimpsed truths? From the silent stone monoliths of Baalbek, whose massive blocks defy our understanding of ancient engineering, to the eerie, perfectly circular formation of the Nazca Lines, visible only from the sky, we have seen human ingenuity clash with forces that refuse to be explained. We have traced the faint echo of the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient computer that hints at knowledge lost centuries before the Renaissance, and we have felt the cold wind that sweeps over the empty quarter where the Red Ghost, a luminous, shape-shifting apparition, has been reported for generations. The blood-stained walls of the Roanoke colony, the cryptic glyphs of the Voynich manuscript, the impossible geometry of the Great Zimbabwe ruins, all of these are fragments of a puzzle that never quite fits. Yet each clue, each oddity, seems to point to a larger, unseen design. Some scholars argue that these anomalies are the remnants of a forgotten civilization, a culture so advanced that its legacy was deliberately erased, leaving behind only whispers in stone and sand. Others suggest a more metaphysical answer, that reality itself is a layered tapestry, and the veil we perceive is thin in certain places, allowing us fleeting glimpses of something beyond our three-dimensional comprehension. In the depths of the Dyatlov Pass, where seasoned hikers perished under circumstances that still defy forensic science, scientists have even proposed that rare atmospheric phenomena, like a sudden release of plasma, could have induced mass hysteria and fatal mistakes. Still, the question lingers. Why do these moments cluster? Why do they echo across continents and centuries? Perhaps the answer lies not in any single discovery, but in the collective silence that follows each revelation. Every time we think we have reached the edge of knowledge, the universe pushes back, offering another locked door, an ancient bronze disk in a Siberian burial mound, a perfectly preserved shipwreck in the Antarctic ice, a series of luminous orbs reported over the Sahara at dawn. The pattern is the same. A glimpse, puzzle piece, a surge of excitement, then a return to darkness. So the final question that haunts every investigator, every curious soul, is not who disappeared, or how did they build it, but a more profound inquiry. What is the hidden framework that permits these mysteries to exist at all? Is there an unseen hand, a cosmic rhythm, or simply the limits of human perception that keep us forever on the brink of understanding? the answer may remain forever out of reach. And perhaps that is precisely what makes the world's unsolved riddles so terrifyingly beautiful. The darkness beckons, waiting for the next mind brave enough to peer into the void and ask once more what lies beyond.